is Dr. ImmaResearch, and welcome to my crazy and wacky lab. Today we will be discussing various issues important to the medical field today. On today's episode, I will be stressing the need for attention to a new disease called COPD. First, we will talk about the significance of clinical research and the steps performed in studies. Then we will see the functions and the vital needs of the lungs. And next we will take a look at a newly discovered disease called chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or also known as COPD. Lastly, we will see what we can do to prevent from this unknown disease attacking you. Are you sure you want to enter this crazy and wacky laboratory? Okay, walk this way. Alright, let's begin with discussing clinical trials. The proper term for a clinical research trial is a biomedical or health-related research study that is conducted in humans that follows a predefined protocol. Okay, you may be wondering how clinical trials begin. Well, allow me to answer that question for you. Many times clinical trials may begin with researchers encountering a problem in their research, leading to an unanswered question which requires an answer before the research can continue, or a pharmaceutical company may decide to explore different indications for a drug which has already received approval. For example, the makers of the birth control Yaz did many studies to see if Yaz would not only prevent pregnancies, but also with mild to moderate acne as well as PMDD. PMDD is a condition known as premenstrual mood dysphoric disorder. After numerous clinical trials, the data revealed what the sponsor of the studies was hoping for. Yaz did in fact help with the treatment of mild to moderate acne and PMDD. The sponsors presented their data to the FDA and received approval to market Yaz, not only with the indication of birth control, but also as a treatment for mild to moderate acne and PMDD. Once a researcher or pharmaceutical company decide on what they would like to have studied, a clinical trial is boring. All clinical research studies need the money to start a study and run a safe and effective clinical trial. To establish funding, many researchers ask help from the agencies known as the NIH, also known as the National Institute of Health, a government-produced agency sponsoring clinical research facilities and trials to help find new treatments for diseases or develop new drugs. Pharmaceutical companies will finance their own research studies for drugs they are developing, or for drugs which already have approval, for which they are seeking a different indication of usage. Once the clinical trial is sponsored, then the phases of clinical research may begin. The first stages in the trial consist of establishing the necessary parameters for subjects to participate in the study. Some examples for the parameters which may be established include age, gender, the type and stage of a disease they may have, and previous treatment history for that disease. It is vital that the subject meet the requirements for a study to assure the data will be accurate and not cause a flaw in the study. The subjects must be aware they are participating in a clinical trial and must receive an informed consent. Like I have right here in the Good Clinical Practice, a question and answer reference guide, an informed consent document which facilitates the process of learning the key facts about the trial, and assists the subject in deciding whether or not they wish to participate. The informed consent must be written in a language which is understandable to the subject at a reading level that most of the population can comprehend. Usually, informed consents are written at a 9th grade reading level to make the document easily understandable. The basic elements of an informed consent which must be contained within the informed consent are a statement the study they are going to participate involves research and an explanation of the purpose of the research, the risks of the research as well as the possible benefits, the duration of the study, the procedures the subjects will undergo as part of the study and which, if any of those procedures are experimental, as well as the amount of time the procedures may take, the total number of subjects who participate in the study, an explanation of who their data will be shared with, along with a statement describing the extent, if any, to which confidentiality of the records will be maintained, a disclosure of alternative treatments, that's if they're available should the subject choose not to participate, and contact information for the study to use should the subject have any questions or concerns regarding the research. The informed consent is not a contract, and the subject may withdraw their consent and their participation in the trial at any time. There are 4 phases of clinical research trial. Let's describe it as a triangle as you see here. The first is very basic and narrow. As it grows along, it becomes very broad and bigger. Well, the first phase is conducted to see if the new drug is in fact safe for humans. Doctors will discover the safest way to redistribute the drug and the safest doses to give. This research is usually carried out on 15 through 30 healthy subjects. If the first phase is successful, the potential drug will move on to the second phase. The second phase will contain fewer than 100 subjects and determines if the new treatment will work effectively. During this phase, researchers may be exposed to new side effects that were not evident during the phase of the first trial. Phase 3 is conducted to see if the new treatment is in fact better than the standard treatment. This phase may be included to hundreds to thousands of subjects. The third phase includes randomizations, a process of assigning subjects to groups to avoid biased results. With this in mind, the subjects may be in a control group or an experimental group. The control group may have a placebo, which is a fake drug or treatment that will have no effect on the subject. This is to test the new treatment's effectiveness. To avoid biased information, trials may have double-blind studies over single-blind studies. A double-blind study is when the doctor and the subjects do not know if they're receiving the control or, in fact, the new treatment. But in a single-blind study, the subject is the only one that is unaware which group they are placed in. If a new treatment has passed all 3 of these phases, they move on to the last phase. Phase 4 is the approval of the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA. Doctors and researchers must show their information and research to the FDA, and the data must demonstrate the effectiveness in order to be administered to the public. The purpose of a phase for clinical trial is to see and study the success and effectiveness of the new treatment or drug over time.